going on, everybody? No, you are not losing your mind. I am back. You are not losing your mind. What's going on, folks? Dave McRae here. Episode 243B, take two. Let's take two. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to McRae Live. It is Sunday, February the 25th, 2024, 7:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you did not tune in earlier this afternoon and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I was live this afternoon. I did a whole nearly 2-hour episode of McRae Live. Episode 243 is what I did. But there was a technical issue. Not during the stream, but afterwards, a viewer of mine reached out and said, Dave, about an hour in, you're freezing up, there's a black screen, the audio's not working, yada, yada, yada. And I went and had a look, and yep, sure enough, it happened. This is the first time it's happened in a long time, but it does happen. And it appears to happen during the processing. So after the stream is done, when YouTube is processing your stream to, have it up, I think that's where it happens, because it doesn't happen during the stream, because the whole stream was fine. So hopefully this stream doesn't do it. And we'll see what happens. So I'm here and I thought, no, you know what? Screw it. I want to come back. I want to make sure that I get this show on. I want to talk to you guys, and I just want to make sure. It feels messy to me. It feels messy when there's nothing there and it's just kind of hanging there and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm here, is to do, this is take two. This is McRae Live, episode 243B. That's what it is. Okay, so now let's jump right into it. Jesus, I'm not going to go through every single thing I went through earlier, but the main topic of this video, this is like the third one, the third show that I've done in a row talking about the paranormal, right? The show, episode 241, I was talking about the Conjuring House and how, the real Conjuring House, not the one from the movie, but the real Conjuring House, and how there's a lot of lies and deception in and around what's going on there right now with the owners and everything, in my opinion, of course. And then episode 242 was all about it was about an EVP that I picked up on tape, on analog cassette tape in January of 2001. What's that? 23 years ago, over 23 years ago now. If you're into the paranormal and you're into like ghosts and all that kind of stuff, then make sure you check out episode 242 of McRae Live. You're not going to want to miss that episode. This episode, the main topic, the main thing is shadow people. And whether or not, like, what are they? What are they? Where exactly are they coming from? All that kind of stuff. Are they real? Are they not? All that. I just wanted that to be kind of the main thing. Start that catalyst, get it out there. And then I want to jump over to the chat room and hear what you guys have to say about your paranormal experiences, or experiences that you just can't explain. What are some of the things that you have experienced? If you're watching after the fact and not live, jump into the comment section and let me know. So if you watch me this afternoon, then you probably know what I'm going to say. But this is take two. This is 243B. I was not going to call it episode 244. It is not episode 244. It is episode 243B. So that's what I'm calling it. So let me do that now. Let me just jump in and let me kind of just recap of what made me think of this. So over the last couple of days, I've been thinking about Port Robinson Road, the experience that I had in my second year of college, and doing that show, episode 241, and then doing episode 242 has made me think a lot about that time again, and about how it's a very personal experience, a very profound experience I had, and it made me think about that movie I want to do, and all that kind of stuff. And then I started to think about stories and that from that time period, and I remember during that time, the residence where I stayed on campus was supposedly haunted. And now this has nothing to do with Port Robinson Road, but this was just another thing from that time. And the reason why is because the manager of the residence would often say, would tell us that often in her years there, every year without fail, she said, every year without fail, there would be somebody that would come, a student that would come to her during the school year at some point and ask questions like, is this place haunted, or is there weird things going on, or whatever the case is, without fail every year. And I found that really interesting. Now, the shadow people aspect of this, which is interesting, is sort of a phenomenon that people all around the world have expressed, seeing shadows, or they think they see a figure in the peripheral, and they look and there's nobody there, or maybe they really do see like the outline of something. Some shadows might look more humanoid than others and all that kind of stuff. And I find that topic interesting, and mainly because, well, for two reasons, because of my experience, at the house on Port Robinson Road. And there's, again, like I said, there's a lot of things that I can't really get into yet. But, a lot of things. But also a story that my friend told me, my friend Beth, who was the night auditor at the residence front desk. So she wasn't a student there. She was just the night auditor. It was her job. She worked there, but she was in and around our age. She was a few years older. Like I was 21. I think she was like 23 or something like that. But young enough that she could relate to everybody that was, in the dorm rooms. It's not like she was 50 or something. And I remember her telling me a story about, I think it was during winter break or maybe during the summer or something. One of the two. Was it during the summer? No. It was during one of the breaks, I believe. And it was late at night, 3:00 in the morning, right? And she noticed that the television was on in the games room. Now and she noticed that because behind the front desk, she's got all the, the security cameras. So she goes into the games room, and the games room is just, it's got a pool table and the arcade games, lounge, TV, all that kind of stuff where, kids would go to hang out, play some pool. And she went in there and she turned off the television. And I believe there is a story with that TV. It's been so long, I have to brush up with her on the whole details. But I believe there was something going on with the television as well. Like she'd go back to the front desk and she'd notice it was on again. And it was like, what the hell is going on? So she'd go back and turn off the TV. Like I think there's weird things going on with that as well. But the story that I found so fascinating and so interesting. And again, this is a friend of mine that you believe 100%, unequivocally. Like this is not somebody that I hardly knew. This was somebody that you believe 100%. It would be like Bruce coming to me and telling me that he saw something crazy. You're going to believe him. You have a friend like that in your life, right? You trust this friend unequivocally because of you just do. It's your best friend. You've known them for years, whatever the case is. And so I come back to Res and I'm there, and she tells me this story about how it was late at night. Again, she's the night auditor, right? So it's her job. It's not weird for her to be there at 3:00 in the morning. But there was nobody around. Most of the kids had gone home for the break or, whatever the case is. There were still a few kids there, but most of us had gone home, myself included. And she was coming out of the games room and she was looking down the hall and down one of the corridors of the first floor. Okay, so on the first floor, it's all guys, and the girls occupy the second and third floors. And so she's looking down the corridor of this hallway, the hallway where I lived, by the way, although I wasn't there, but it was that hallway. And she sees somebody about to enter his dorm room. Okay, so he's got his key card out and he's about to enter the dorm room, and he looks over and I guess he sees Beth, and she sees him and she waves at him, and he just kind of goes like, hey Beth, how's it going? Whatever. And at that moment, from behind him, so if I'm here like this, right, and the door is in front of me, so on the other side, like behind him, that's not really good because the camera's, anyways, you know what I'm talking about, right? To his left, okay, because you're looking at me, it's actually the right side. But it's your right, my left. To his left, just a few feet this way, she says this black figure or mist, something, this black something peeked around, stepped right out, peeked around the corner, and then quickly stepped back. And she stopped. Now, the guy at the end of the hall, who's about to go into his dorm room, okay, stops and looks at her down the hall at Beth and says, "What the fuck was that?" And she's like, "You saw that too?" And he's like, "Yes." And then the two of them, she marches down the hall, and then the two of them peek around the corner because he wasn't too far away from where the hall goes around, the corner, right? Now, around that corner is about another 2 or 3 dorm rooms and a set of stairs, okay? The stairs that go up to the 2nd and 3rd floors. We had an elevator in the building as well, but that was one of the staircases. And what's strange, and it had a big metal door. It's kind of those fire escape doors, you see in buildings, it's got the push thing, and you open it up. It's a big door. So you would have heard it. If it was a person that snuck into the stairwell, you would have heard it. You would have heard the door open, the door shut. There was nothing like that. No sounds of the dorm room doors opening or any dorm room doors opening. And so they look around and they're spooked beyond belief. It's like, what the fuck was that? And I'm listening to this and I'm like, that's wild. Just another story, and there's a lot of them, but just another story about how, supposedly there's weird and unusual things that go on at the residence. Now, because I like to, I'm not somebody that just blindly believes. I do believe that there is something going on beyond our reality and existence. And if you've been watching my last 2 shows, and you know why that is. But, you have to be skeptical, right? If you're not skeptical, you're gullible. And so, I'm thinking to myself, well, could it have been a person? Like, could it actually have been a person that stepped around the corner? Maybe they were dressed in all black, right? Maybe it was, let's just call it what is. Maybe it was, I'm trying to think if we had any black students in the building. I think we did, but maybe it was a black student who was dressed in black. It's far away. He or she did something quick. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to, I'm being honest here, right? You've got to go through this kind of stuff. It's not, paranormal shouldn't be your first go-to, right? And I'm asking, and she's like, there's nobody was down there. Like, the people that were in those dorm rooms were not there. They were gone. I'm like, okay, there's nobody, of that ethnicity that was down there. Okay. Could it have been somebody else? Could it have been, you're trying to go through this. And she said, Dave, yeah, I would think the same thing, because she's like that too, right? You have to be, you got to weed it all out first. You can't just, oh, it's paranormal. You can't do that. You got to weed it all out. And she said, it was just so strange. It wasn't like it was just like a thing. It was weird. It was just weird. And that's why, but she said the music to her ears was when the guy said, "What the fuck was that?" Because it was like, oh my God, thank you. Thank goodness you saw that too. And I'm not just going crazy. But no idea what it was. But this is an example. This is just a small example of the shadow people, right? What's commonly known as shadow people. And listen, every religion, it goes back. There's all sorts of you go back into history and different civilizations and different religions and faiths. They all have their stories about shadow people. Now, I'm not here to knock religion. I'm not going to say that it's all garbage. I'm just simply saying that some stories you hear tend to be a little more sensationalized than others. I'm generally not somebody that always falls into the sensational side of things. That tends to be a very, a little too Hollywood for me. I'm not saying that, demon possession was somebody levitating like in The Exorcist or in The Conjuring and being pulled across the room by an unknown force is not possible. I'm just simply saying that it is a little little Hollywood for me. I need a little more evidence than just creepy stories, which are creepy stories, and you have to file them away, and that's really interesting, and okay. But I, in my experience with the paranormal, it was nothing like that, although it still was very real and very creepy. It was just very more nuanced, let's say, more subtle, let's say. And so it's one of those things where, you know, I started to think, and I hadn't thought of that story in quite some time. And so I started to think to myself, you know, what are shadow people? Because I think that's the category for which it would fall under. And it's very quick. It's very easy to be able to, you know, very easy to be able to you know, jump to the paranormal conclusion, right? To jump to those conclusions and do all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to be skeptical. But this is what that would fall under, is that shadow person thing. And I started to think, well, what could it be? You know, because yes, right now we don't understand a lot of things. It's like my EVP don't. And by the way, the don't EVP isn't the only EVP that we got. But it's like EVP, right? And especially like my don't EVP. Again, folks, I encourage you, if you did not watch that episode and you are into paranormal stuff, you are into ghosts, or even have a, you know, an interest in that kind of thing, and you did not watch episode 242 of McRae Live, I encourage you to do so. It will likely be the clearest EVP you have ever heard, and that's not hyperbolic. It's still, it's one of the reasons why I have been affected so profoundly by the experience. So I started to think, you know, we live in a three-dimensional world, right? We live in a three-dimensional world. But not everything in our three-dimensional world lives in the same three-dimensional world, right? There's many insects and bugs and things like that. If you followed me earlier, you know where I'm going with this, but I think it's a very good point to make. And, you know, like you take the ant, for example, right? The ant, you know, little Arnold the ant lives in a two-dimensional world in a three-dimensional space, right? But lives in a two-dimensional world. And so if an ant was, you know, bathing in the sunlight, and there's little Arnold the ant, he's catching some rays and he's having a good time, and I step into the sun and I put a shadow over him, Arnold the ant can't look up and see me. He can't do that because he can only look this way and front and back. He can't put his head and go like this. He can't see me. So in his two-dimensional world, he would have no idea where that shadow is coming from, right? But the shadow is real. It's not fake. It's not a ghost, but it is another living thing coming from a three-dimensional world into his two-dimensional world. My cat just scared me. I see this thing out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh my God, is it happening? It was my cat. It was Veda. Hey, Veda, what's going on? Did you yeah, I gave you some dinner. And so I was just thinking, did I give her some dinner? I did. But that would happen, right? But the ant wouldn't know where to look. The ant wouldn't know where to look, and wouldn't know what to do, right? And so the ant would go back home to his ant buddies and be like, I saw this shadow. It was weird. I don't know where it came from. What's going on? Holy snap and crap, right? When in reality, you know what I mean? And I often wonder if that's what's happening here in a lot of ways. That yes, it's supernatural, or it feels supernatural. It feels paranormal because we can't explain it, right? But so did thunder and lightning, you know, however many thousands of years ago. It too, you know, there was a time where we human beings thought thunder and lightning was God coming down and some sort, like, I mean, that's true. We also thought the earth was flat. You know, there's a lot of things that we've learned over time because of science, and we've gotten better, and technology and all this kind of stuff. And right now, there's a lot of things that feel paranormal and a lot of things that feel supernatural, and they are because we can't explain them. But that doesn't mean that if we could explain them, that we wouldn't suddenly realize, oh my God, they are just a part of our cosmos. They are just a part. It is natural. It is real. It is just a part of our universe. We just can't see it or tap into it. It isn't supernatural. It isn't paranormal. It's just, it really is real. It's just we can't, it seems supernatural to us because like how my shadow would seem supernatural to the ant. And I sometimes wonder if that is what happens with shadow people. And listen, I understand that a lot of religions, they're demons and they're this and they're that. And I get that we've created stories and myths and they've, and people claim to have been attacked by shadows and cut and scraped and I get all that. But unfortunately, I've never experienced that. I've never known anybody who has experienced that. And I am very skeptical of that kind of thing. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying evil doesn't exist in the world. I'm just saying that I wonder if, like, for example, the experience that my friend had and the experience that a lot of people do have when it comes to shadow people, because, really the norm is what happened to my friend, not the exception is a story that you hear about some shadow person coming out of the depths of hell and attacking somebody and throwing them across a room. I mean, yes, you do hear those stories, but those aren't the norm, right? That's not the rule, okay? That's the exception every now and then. The rule really is more like, the experiences are like what my friend has had. And, take it from that perspective, right? We live in a 3-dimensional world. Well, if a 4th dimension does exist, a 4-dimensional world does exist, we can't see that. Like we literally can't see it. We can't touch it. We can't go there. We don't even know what that would mean. And what is the 4th dimension? Some scientists have, said, well, the 4th dimension is time. And it's like, okay, and there's arguments for why they say that, and then they go on to the 5th dimension. Carl Sagan's talked all about that as well. But I wonder, if in that moment, whatever that was that peeked around the corner, right? That's what it looked like. Whatever that was, I wonder if it was a moment in time where whatever it was able to make themselves known in our dimension, like how we would make ourselves known to the ant, right? We step in front of the sun and the ant is looking at the ground like, what the fuck? Holy shit. You know what I'm saying? Or, it's like, what the hell is that? And then I move out of the sun and I'm gone and the ant doesn't know what the hell it was, whatever. I wonder if that's what shadow people are. And now what they are, I don't know. We call them people, but we don't know if they're people or not. But whatever it is, whatever that is, I wonder, thinking about it logically, thinking about it scientifically, about it plausibly, quantum physics and, really, really thinking about it from I know it's not romantic to think of it like this and it's not as exciting as a Hollywood movie, but really, thinking about it and getting to the bottom of it, I wonder if that's an explanation for it or a possible explanation that, no, what you are experiencing is real. It's very real. It's whatever beings or, whatever that is, there's been a meeting of the dimensions for a brief moment, like you stepping in front of the sun and stepping out of the sun again, right? It's real. It really did happen, but you can't see it or explain it, and you don't know where to look. We could go down the rabbit hole and then discuss, well, are they self-aware? Because I can accidentally walk in front of the sun over an ant, and I can also purposefully walk in front of this, do they know we're here, right? Is it like us where, because think about that, right? There are creatures on this planet right now, on planet Earth. There are actual living species, right? Whether they're ants or bugs or whatever the case is, there are living species on this planet right now that their whole world is 2-dimensional, but they live in a 3-dimensional world. Do you know what I mean? But their world is 2-dimensional. They can look this way and that way and front and back, but they can't look up and down. That exists in our world right now. Now we're a species that lives in a 3-dimensional world that can look up and down and left and right and front and back and all that. But what if we're just like the ant to another species, right? And they're looking at us going like how we look at the ant. or whatever the case is. I mean, it's just up the chain of events. And maybe there's another species or whatever that looks at them in their own fourth dimensional world because the other species is in a sixth dimensional world. Whatever the case is. I mean, that's entirely possible. And maybe, just maybe, you know, like EVP, right? Or like my don't. I mean, what is that? What's coming through? What's it? I didn't hear it when we were there, which is usually the case with EVP. What is that? How is that happening? Right? How is the tape recorder picking it up, but I don't hear it, or what's going on? All these things. And I know it's fun to jump to the ghostly Hollywood side of things, and that's fun too. And don't get me wrong, I get it. But at this point in my life, I really like to kind of go the other way with it. I was talking about this on the show earlier today on the stream, but I'll just quickly, you know, repeat it here. And I think this has a lot to do with my experience as a young man in my early 20s that has sort of shaped me this way into how I feel about horror movies. Now, don't get me wrong. I like a good slasher movie as much as the next person. And slasher horror movies were the first horror movies I got into as a kid in the 80s. But now at nearly 45 years old, it's not that I can't watch a slasher movie and it's not that I can't watch, you know, but I really find I need to be challenged. I really find that I need to be, and again, not that I can't watch a fluff fart horror movie and just enjoy it for what it is. I absolutely can, but I can't do that over and over again. You know, I'm very, and listen, maybe some people will say that I'm too picky and that I'm no fun, and that's all fair. That's fair. I get it. I understand it. But at this point in my life, I feel like I need to be challenged. I feel like I need to think about those types of things in that way. And as much as there are wonderful, really good paranormal horror movies out there and supernatural horror movies out there, for sure there are. There's also a lot of garbage out there that is just paint by numbers, pedestrian, going through the motions, you know, just a very typical sort of run-of-the-mill kind of thing. And we get a lot of that, and I don't get excited about that kind of stuff. And I don't go to the theater to see that kind of stuff. I think somebody asked me not too long ago, hey, did you see The Nun too? I'm like, no, I never saw The Nun. I just don't care about, it's just, they're too formulaic, it's the same thing over and over and over again. That doesn't mean they can't be a good time, and that doesn't mean that if you're not in the right mood at the right time, it's Halloween time, you pop into a horror movie with a bunch of friends, or you go to a horror. I get it. They have their place, and they will always be there, and I'm not knocking it. And I'm not knocking anybody who loves those kinds of movies. Hey, you do you, and I'm no better than you, you're no better than me. It's just different. It's different strokes for different folks, right? However, I do feel that at this point in my life, I want to, you know, it's like the ghost hunting shows. I was talking about this earlier as well. They're fun. And yes, you can watch them and they're fun and they have value for sure. But at the end of the day, it's just the same thing over and over again. And you're no further along at figuring out whether ghosts are real, you know, at the beginning of the show than you are at the end of the show, or at the end of the show than you were at the beginning of the show. And listen, if your litmus test to figuring out if ghosts are real or not is capturing something on, you know, cassette or, you know, something moving or a flashlight turning off and on, well then, yeah, I guess these shows prove ghosts are real. But these shows don't do any of that. And they're not there, they're not designed to do that. They're there and designed to be entertaining first and foremost, and to get, you know, and to create, you know, a lot of excitement around investigating a haunted place. As somebody who investigated a haunted place for 6 months, I might add, this is not just something that was happening over the course of, you know, a week or two. This was from November 2000 to April 2001. I can certainly tell you that, you know, it was the most in comparison to a lot of these YouTube shows you see, it was nothing like that. That's very Hollywood. It was nothing like that. But it was also 25 years ago. So it was during a time where there was no social media, no YouTube, I mean, that's not why we were doing it. We didn't call ourselves ghost hunters. We didn't have t-shirts and hats, and, you know, we weren't posting our shit online. We were really doing it because of what we had discovered, and we were enamored with what we had discovered, and probably naively thought that we were going to figure it all out and answer one of life's greatest questions, which is what happens when we die. Of course, when you're 21, you naively think that. But that didn't make the experience any more of a, or it didn't, the fact that we were unable to do that in the end didn't make the experience any less great. And so I just feel it's like, to me, like I've watched a few of these ghost shows and they're fun and they're well produced, they're well put together, the production value is great, like the Sam and Colby stuff. But at the end of the day, if you've seen 3, you've seen them all, and and I'm just kind of like, and mind you, they're the real article, right? Sam and Colby, they're the ones that sell it. You watch it for them or their friends or whatever, and I get it. It's a good time, and especially if you're younger. I mean, I'm probably not the target demographic, especially if you're younger or their age, of their generation, which I think is Gen Y or Gen Z or whatever the hell we're up to now, then you're no doubt going to love it. But I need more. I'm beyond that now. Again, it's not that I can't fall into it and have a good time every now and then, but I really want to watch, horror movies on this subject matter and talk about it in ways that really challenge me, because I really want to, even though I know I probably will never figure it out, because the ant is never going to be able to figure out that I was a living creature standing over. It's just not possible in his 2-dimensional world. It's still fun to speculate on and think about and theorize and come up, and maybe one day we will figure it out. I have no idea, but that's what Port Robinson Road is. It's not a Amityville Horror. It's not a Conjuring, and those are great movies. I love them. But my film is more of that psychological horror drama that really deals with it on a serious level. And yes, it's dark, and yes, I want it to be scary, dripping with mood and atmosphere, and you're on the edge of your seat like this. Yes, it will be a scary film. But I as I've said in the last 2 shows, I want to take it seriously in the sense of like it's like an Oppenheimer. Now, before you laugh and go, I don't mean it's like Oppenheimer in terms of box office prestige and Christopher Nolan status. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the tone of the film. Like when you watch Oppenheimer, it's a serious film, right? It's a serious film with serious performances, and it feels like they're taking it seriously. That's what I mean. I don't mean the stereotypical horror movie where, it's a bunch of college kids going out to a haunted house, and you got to have the archetypal characters, the jock, the nerd, the slut, it's not like that. That's not the way I want it. Tonally, I want it to be very serious. And I don't know if it's been done before with the college age group. I'm not entirely sure, but that's how I see it. That's how I've always envisioned it for decades. And I want it, but yes, it will be scary and like, wow, fuck, this is intense. You know what I mean? Like, yes, 100%. But not a traditional supernatural paranormal movie like we see today. I don't want it like that. So that's why I hold it so close to the vest. That's why it's, very personal to me. But yeah, shadow people, maybe that's an explanation. Maybe they are from the 4th dimension. If there is a 4th dimension, and listen, there's 1 dimension, there's 2 dimensions, there's 3 dimensions. We know that. Maybe there is a 4th dimension. Look at the film Interstellar, right? They deal with that. I think they even deal with the 5th dimension, right? Or something like that. Like, that's cool. Like, think of the tone of that movie. That's really interesting, right? And I don't mean that, okay, first of all, I don't mean that it would be as complex and as, really as intense as Interstellar or something like Oppenheimer. I don't mean that. I'm just using those films as an example of, oh yeah, those are like, they take it seriously. Like, it's not, you're not watching it feeling like it's a typical run-of-the-mill little horror. You know what I'm saying? Like, really taking it seriously. And yeah, but shadow people, that's what I think. And if you ask my opinion on what I think a shadow person is, if I had to look at it from a less Hollywood perspective and on a serious note, I would say that I have no evidence of this, no evidence whatsoever. I don't know what shadow people are. I don't even know if it's a thing, but it's definitely a phenomenon that a lot of people have experienced, including myself, but I can't get into it. But I will say that it is definitely, I would say that a good, possible scientific explanation might be that maybe it is something from another dimension. And I don't mean another dimension like Doctor Who. I mean like within our own Earth, like it's our own space, like how maybe it's on our own planet. Maybe there is a whole other. Holy fuck, think about that. Isn't that eerie to think about? There is an entire other species, an entire other civilization, an entire other existence that is living in a 4th or 5th dimension on Earth, but we just don't see them. Now, mind you, the ants can see us. If we were to put our foot beside the ant, or we pick up the ant and we look at them, yeah, they'll be able to see us, of course, because we've now brought them into the third dimension. But if you just leave an ant in its natural habitat and you stand there, the ant might see your foot, but the ant can't look up and see your face, right? Anyways, it's just really, I find it really interesting. And that's kind of where I am now when it comes to paranormal horror and supernatural horror. Again, like The Conjuring, I think is one of the best, it's a possession movie, but possession, paranormal, supernatural, they all kind of overlap in some ways. I think The Conjuring, the first one, is one of the best studio-released horror movies of the last 20 years. I really do. I also feel that way about the first Insidious. And because I think as far as studio-released Hollywood films go, it's a nice balance. It's a nice balance because it's probably asking way too much to get like the kind of film that I'm talking about from mainstream Hollywood. It's probably more of an independent, A24 kind of thing. But sure enough, I just absolutely think that. I think that's a possible explanation. So anyway, let's jump over to the chat room and see what you guys are saying. I know a super chat did come in from Josh McKenna, who sends in $9.99 and says, are you and Bruce going to direct Port Robinson Road together, or are you going to do it by yourself? Also, what's your favorite episode of McRae Live that meant a lot to you? No, Port Robinson Road is my project. It is a project that I will direct. Bruce would likely come on as a producer, to help kind of just kind of, to bounce things off of, to help, help spearhead it along with me. I'd be a producer on it as well. And, but when it comes to the actual directing of the film, he would let me do that. And that's simply because I have a very clear vision of what I want from it, because I've been thinking about it for nearly 25 years. And Bruce has a project, that's like that for him, not a paranormal, supernatural thing, but there's a story that he wants to tell. It's a science fiction film that he has a very clear vision on, that he's very excited about. It would be like his Port Robinson Road, meaning like his personal baby, right? And that's a project that I've already said to him. I said, that's you. Like you take that, you direct that, like you fucking, because that's you. Like you need to do that. I'll come on as a producer and I'll help spearhead it. I'll help with casting or, whatever, right? But in terms of like on-set directing, taking the reins, that's you. So no, Port Robinson Road is definitely something that I need to get in there, need to get into the weeds, because I have such a clear vision on, even clearer than It's Me, Billy, because it's, again, because it's goes back so long ago. All right, let me see here. So what are you guys saying? So tell me some of your paranormal stories. Tell me, have you ever experienced a shadow person? Have you ever experienced something paranormal? Tell me it right now in the chat room. Or if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Tell me. Okay, we got Western Ram sends in $1.99 and says, have you seen Hereditary? Also love this series. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I have seen Hereditary. I saw it when it first came out in, I think, 2018, 2019. Loved it. Thought it was great. And when you think of Hereditary, that is in the same vein in terms of tonally, right? Obviously, it's not the same subgenre of horror, but in the same vein of, my idea for Port Robinson Road. Like I already have an idea, a vision for the teaser, or a teaser, maybe not the teaser, but a teaser, something that could totally be, like it's a very character-driven film. Now, obviously, as I said on the show the other day, it would be based on a true story. But because I'm telling a true story through the medium of a film, I would have to take certain creative licenses because I need to keep the story entertaining. Now, I don't mean lying right? Full out lying. And all of a sudden my movie's going to have floorboards moving and walls bleeding. And, there's going to be a character that's going to be picked up and thrown out a window. And, no, I'm not going to do, I don't mean that. I just mean that and the analogy or the example I used was like, as an example, one of the ways that you take creative liberties is the second night that we went to the house, it was raining. And there was some thunder in the distance, and you could see a bit of sheet lightning, and it was raining. It wasn't teeming down. It wasn't like, but it was raining. And I thought it was really cool, right? It was perfect for the atmosphere, right? Well, in my story, in the film, I would turn that probably into a thunderstorm, right? Where it would be like right over the house, right? And it's raining and there's thunder and lightning, illuminating the property and all that kind of stuff, because you're telling a story, right? You have to entertain your audience. You have to make it cinematic, right? And that's very, very important. Because if you're going to tell it verbatim exactly how everything was, then you might as well just do a documentary. So there are certain things that even when you're telling a true story for the art, through the art of film, that you always have to remember that you are making a movie and you're telling a narrative, right? A fictional, a fictionalized, a somewhat fictionalized version of the events, right? Because it's not like we're playing like I'm not in the movie, and it's casted, and it's all that kind of stuff, right? And so you have to keep that in mind when you are telling that story. And then going through all the events of what happened and going, okay, how can we take these events and weave them into the story, right? How can we take these events, weave them into the story? What makes sense to use? What makes sense not to use? That's why things are, based on a true story or based on true events. They take, and listen, the creative liberties that are taken in that can be vast. It's a vast spectrum. I mean, look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Practically none of that happened, right? But then there are other based on true stories where a lot of it happened, but sometimes they change some things or kind of, hype things up a little bit, polish a little bit to obviously, again, through the art of cinema. And so Port Robinson Road would be no different. I mean, you have to do that, but it's the crux of the story and the crux of the message and the heart. It's the heart of the characters and the characters' motivations that are really important in that film or in my in my story. But it's pretty crazy stuff. Zodiac Z says, my ex-GF is my only experience with the paranormal. She had a pic on her phone of the cemetery in our town at the time. There was a ghost standing there in the photo. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting indeed. Zodiac, did you listen to episode 242 of McRae Live? If not, you can jump over there, not right now, but after this show is done, jump over there and listen to something that will be your second experience with the paranormal. I don't know how many people have watched that episode, and I do know that it takes me about 33 or 34 minutes to actually play the audio clip, but that's because I am setting everything up. I think it's really important to give people context so they can really appreciate what you are hearing in the clip. And so, I highly recommend, again, if you have an interest in paranormal, an interest in ghost hunting, an interest in anything in that way, please watch episode 242 of McRae Live, and watch the whole thing. Or at least watch, the first 45 minutes, because you'll get the setup, you'll get me explaining everything, and then I will play for you the clip. And I play it a number of times. I don't just play it once. It's a 13-second clip. I play it a number of times, and it'll probably make you go, wow, holy shit. And it's real. It's 100% real. And when I say real, that's not me claiming that I am here to claim that voice is a ghost. I have no idea what it is. I mean, I know it would fall into the category of a ghost, I guess, but I don't know if it's a ghost. All I know is that there were 3 people there. You could hear me talking. The other 2 people were not talking, and we have this other voice that's there that we didn't hear when we were actually in the space. And I don't mean you kind of hear it on the tape. For those of you that watched that episode, you can vouch for me. Oh no, you hear it clear and as loud and as clear as day. You hear it. And it is still shocking to me and again, where is that coming from, right? What is it coming from another dimension, right? Another, like a 4-dimensional space. And that's why we can't see it. And then for whatever reason, like the shadow over the ant, there's a moment, I don't know how they're able to do it, but there's a moment where they're able to do something that connects with our 3-dimensional space. It's really fascinating, really fascinating. Let me see here. Michael Dammit says, Dave, when I was a kid in the 80s, I swear I heard a voice say something and I admittedly asked, what? And I didn't hear anything else. I guess you'd have to provide, were you sleeping? Were you half asleep? How old were you? Where were you? There's a lot of, it's interesting, like that kind of thing happens. The reason why it's so difficult, to decipher what's real and what's not is because, like I've always said, more often than not, there are reasonable explanations for unusual occurrences. And so, it can be tricky to kind of figure out, what those things are. And, we've all had that where we thought we've heard somebody say our name but it could be a variety of reasons. Maybe it's just when we're falling asleep. Have you had that? I've had that before, where you're just on the verge of falling asleep and you hear like a big crash or something and you wake up and you look around and there's nothing there. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many weird and strange things that happen, but it's pretty cool. Dirk Diggler sends in $2, says, scroll up, I sent my super chat story earlier. Oh, okay, great. Thanks, buddy. Let me go back and see if I can get this. Dirk Diggler, there he is, sends in $5. Thanks, buddy. Says, I often will feel my cat walking on my bed, but when I look, she's asleep in another room. Happens to me occasionally, creeps me out a bit, not gonna lie. That's really interesting. So let me see if we can break this down and maybe figure out a logical explanation for it. So you will often feel what you deem as your cat walking on your bed. That's very specific, right? It's not, I feel somebody, like I just feel something sitting on my bed or the impression of my mattress goes down or whatever. No, you actually got specific and say, I feel, there are times where I will feel my cat walk across my bed and I look and the cat's not there. It's sleeping in the other room. Now, maybe this could be something because obviously the cat has walked across your bed many times. You know what that feeling feels like. And for whatever reason, when you're sitting on the bed, maybe there's a sense memory that's happening. Like maybe there's something happening in the muscle tissue where that sends a signal to your brain, and that signal to your brain makes you think you felt something that you really haven't. Do you know what I mean? Because you're so used to feeling it. Because it's a very specific feeling, I wonder if there's something going on there where you're sitting on your bed and you're so used to feeling that, deep in your subconscious, something happens that triggers something to your brain that makes you think you felt that, because maybe you're expecting your cat to jump on the bed, or maybe you walked past your cat and noticed your cat sleeping before you walked into your bedroom. So you've noticed your cat, the cat now is in your subconscious, right? And you're sitting on your bed and something happens with, the neurons firing, and it makes you kind of, you almost feel like, it's like how, really, I mean, it's like how doctors can poke certain points of our brain and make us feel or smell things, right, that aren't actually there. I mean, we know that, right? I mean, that's been scientifically proven that if I was having brain surgery and my skull was open, the doctor could poke a certain part of my brain to make me smell burnt toast, and I swear I smell it. I smell it, man. I smell it, and it really isn't there. And so I wonder if maybe that's what's happened, right? I'm just trying to think of a logical explanation of what's sort of gone on there. I don't know, but it wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time that people have expressed that and experienced that, where, they will be sitting on their bed or they will be in bed asleep, and they will feel like either their husband get into bed and they swear their husband got into bed and they didn't, they never did. And, whatever the case is. And it's a very eerie sort of thing. Mangrove Pierce says, guys, is the Port Robinson Road Dave's second channel? No. The Port Robinson Road was a YouTube channel that's dead right now. It's dormant. There's nothing, there's a few things on there from something we were working on about 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, about 16, 17 years ago. But there's nothing of any substantial stuff on there that would relate to the actual film itself. I should probably log in and actually delete what's there because it's very outdated, and I would like to sort of just kind of keep things fresh and not really out there. But no, it's not my second channel. Let me see here. The Oct says, one time sleeping at my grandparents' house, I clearly heard a voice say, "Get out." Pretty certain it wasn't a dream. Very cool. Very interesting. Very interesting. Anybody else? Anybody else? Let me see. Let me scroll all the way down here to the bottom here. Hang on a sec. Okay. Let me see here. Dustin Pritchard says, used to live in a house with a lot of experiences and commented about having sleep paralysis and having a being or entity be there during those events. They were terrifying experiences. Yeah, the sleep paralysis thing is interesting because it has been, I don't believe sleep paralysis is something that is supernatural. I know that there are people out there that believe it's supernatural and believe that, it's somebody holding them down, or it's some supernatural outside force that is preventing them from getting up, or, whatever the case is. And my mother suffered from sleep paralysis. I don't think I've ever had it, but I certainly have been in the presence of somebody who has. There are scientific explanations for it, and that it's been measured and tested, I believe. And I know that's not fun, but I believe there is sort of logical explanations for it. And, the idea of seeing like a spirit in your room or an entity or something, I don't know. Like, again, this kind of topic has been so stigmatized. That's one of the things that I find incredibly frustrating about it, is that it's been stigmatized, right? You can't say ghosts or UFOs or demons without people snickering at you. And whether that's intentional because these things are real and all the sort of propaganda to make them funny and hilarious, to demonize, no pun intended, people that talk about it, I don't know. I guess that's why I'm always very cautious in the way that I talk about it and in the ways that I choose my words, because I don't want people to, I don't want to be painted in a corner as a loon, as a loony bin, because, it's not. I do believe that there is something beyond this reality. But I'm not willing to go as far as to say I know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what it is. You can believe something and you can say, well, I believe that's what it is. Okay, and that's what you believe it is. But nobody truly does know. And I'm not willing to go that far and say, and I guess that's why I'm not willing or ready yet to say that the don't voice is a ghost. Because I'm like, well, what do we mean by ghost? Somebody who's died, whose spirit is still living in the house. And that's what we mean by ghost. Okay, well, yes, it could very well be that. But then we have to be able to prove that, that spirits are real, right? And we can't really do that. It's very difficult. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence. There's a lot of things that are very cool, but we can't really prove that. And it becomes incredibly frustrating. Again, that's why I really liked actually, hang on one second. I'll be right back. I want to get his books. 1 second. All right. Sorry about that, folks. So that's why if you're a reader, and I'm not a huge reader, But if you're a reader and you like reading nonfiction and you're really into this stuff, then I highly recommend 2 books. One is called What Happens When We Die, a groundbreaking study into the nature of life and death by Dr. Sam Parnia. That's the book there. This is not a sponsor, by the way. That's the book there. What Happens When We Die, Dr. Sam Parnia, and his follow-up book called Erasing Death. Erasing Death. Okay, this is a medical doctor talking about NDEs, near-death experiences, and a study called the AWARE study from the, 2010, like the early 2010s. I think it was like a 7 or 8 year study. And he was a medical doctor, worked at one of the New York hospitals. And he actually, it might even, I don't know if I quickly, does it say? I can't read. Anyway, really great books. And what he measures, he talks about the brain and all that, like he wants to know what happens when we die. And this was the study. It's why it was called the AWARE study, right? Being self-aware, because that's what it's really about, right? When we die, wherever we go, are we aware? Do we know who we are? Do we, like, when I die, am I going to know I'm Dave McRae or I was Dave McRae? Or is that, am I going to know, or does everything that happens here stay here? And I don't, like, what, am I going to be self-aware of all this? Who knows, if you believe in that kind of stuff. And they were able to prove scientifically that it is in his professional medical opinion that consciousness, right? Consciousness does survive the death process, at least for a little bit. We're not sure how much, how long, and this has been done through the study, through tons of, and he's not the only one that is looked into it, but obviously there are many examples of near-death experiences or people who are clinically dead. So the heart stops beating, the heart is no longer pumping blood to the brain, there's no heart activity, there's no brain activity, so you are dead. You're clinically dead. And there's been many examples where these patients have been dead for, 5 or 10 minutes. And so there should not be any neurons firing. There isn't anything going on. There's no brain activity. And yet they're able to come back and recall precisely conversations that were said in the, in the room. And not only that, even conversations that their relatives were having, 2 floors down in the next room. I mean, these things, and they document all this kind of stuff. You might have heard these kind of things before, but they're documented in here. And he was the head of the AWARE study. And it's really fascinating, these books, because they take a scientific look at this. And that's why because at the end of the day, you can run around in a dark room going, my flashlight, until the cows come home. You're not going to discover anything, right? At the end of the day, we can ghost hunt until the cows come home, but we're never going to really know if it's real unless we start at the beginning. And the beginning is actually the end of our lives, which is death. And he wanted to figure out where the seed of consciousness lies. Is consciousness produced by the brain? Because believe it or not, although the general consensus is that it is, and neurosurgeons and neuroscientists, no doubt there's a general consensus, yes, I was unaware, according to this guy, and I've looked it up and it's absolutely true, that yes, although they believe this is how this, it's not scientifically proven objectively that the brain produces consciousness. That's wild. Did you know that? They actually still don't know for sure. And because it's extraordinarily difficult to measure. Because what is consciousness? Awareness, right? And so it's incredibly difficult. And I find this interesting. And that really is the crux of it. If you can somehow prove, and they haven't been able to do this because it's very difficult to die for 6 years and then bring that same person back. It's something we just can't do. But if you can somehow prove scientifically that the seed of consciousness does go on, right? Or what a lot of, spiritual people or religious folks will call the soul, right? If you can, because that's really what we're talking about here, right? When we talk about someone's soul, we're talking about their psyche, their consciousness, their awareness, right? Who they are, right? You know what I mean? Because the body dies, but does your awareness go on? Does your psyche go on? Does your consciousness go on? And that's what we're really talking about. And, if you can somehow prove that that does go on, well, that's really fascinating, isn't it? And that's what this study was really all about, trying to figure that out. And in his professional opinion, they came to the conclusion that we believe that consciousness does survive the process of death, at least for a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that it survives indefinitely, but there is, they were able to assess that, based on this experiment, this example, and it was these kinds of studies are like years. Like, you don't just do this over a few months. This was like a 10-year thing or an 8-year thing or something. And they came to that conclusion, and it was really interesting to listen to these professionals talk about this, because there was also like a podcast or something about it, and it was really, really cool. And so, listen, although I know that that doesn't necessarily make a great horror movie, that's kind of where I am now in my life when it comes to this topic, because I'm like, yeah, like we can run around in the dark and it's fun, don't get me wrong, and it's creepy and it's eerie, and you guys know me, I like mystery. I revel in the unknown and mystery and the theater of the mind, and I love all that. But there's only so much of it I can do, right? And so when it comes to a paranormal horror movie, that's what I'm interested in, is making a movie that, yes, is scary. Of course it's going to be scary. It's going to be dripping in mood and atmosphere like you've never seen before. And my goal is to have you on the edge of your seat and like, what the fuck's going to happen? Holy shit, right? But there's a tone to the piece that is very mature. And although a lot of people don't like this word, and I get it, because, people take it personally, but I don't mean it like that. There is an elevated nature to it, right? It's a psychological horror drama, really, at the end of the day. There's a serious tone to it. You're not watching The Nun, you're not watching Slender Man. It's not that kind of movie. But it's fucking dripping with all the classic McRae mood and atmosphere and shit that you could have. And because that excites me. And I said this earlier this afternoon on the stream, but I'll say it again here too, is that really at the end of the day, this is a movie that I want to see, and it's like, I feel like Richard Dreyfuss from Jaws when he was offered the part and he's like, I don't want to be in this movie. I want to watch this movie. I kind of feel like that. It's like, I want to make a movie that I want to see, because I don't see these kinds of horror movies. That doesn't mean there's not great psychological horror paranormal movies out there. There are. But I don't know, is there something like to this level that I'm talking about that deals with the college age group, where the archetypes are thrown out the window and there's, you know what I mean? It's not like it's taken seriously. I don't know. I'm not sure if there is. And maybe a studio wouldn't be interested because of that. And maybe I'm just going to have to go about it on my own. But it is something I feel very passionate about that part of it. I mean, how the story unfolds and where it goes and what we do. And you have to be open to compromises and creative, you know what I mean? You have to be, because, it is a movie after all, and you have to be. But the tone of the film and the idea of just being so, I want my audience to be so enamored in the drama and in the character, like the back and forth and the conversations that the characters are having. And, I want them to feel like they're like, a part of the group. You know what I mean? Like, I want to feel that, I don't want it to be just another, and I say this with all due respect to Blumhouse, because as I said on my other show, I would jump at an opportunity to direct a Blumhouse horror film, but just sort of like the stereotype, like, a typical kind of, just, I don't want it to be like that, somebody said to me the other day, well, maybe it's A24 that you're thinking about. Like that kind of, A24 is more along, they would probably be interested in something like that, but I'm nowhere near pitching this idea to them. I mean, I don't even have a finished script. I'm not even into, I don't have a pitch deck. I don't have anything, but I got me. But one day, and hopefully one day soon, because it is a huge passion. All right, super chats. One comes in from Ethan Self. Thank you, Ethan. Sends in a generous super chat of $19.99. Says, one time, my old cell phone started ringing with a SIM card and hadn't been charged in 2 years. And it said, unknown caller. Ooh, that's creepy. I answered it and only heard static, and then it died. I was so spooked that I threw it in the dumpster. That's interesting. You know, I mean, a logical explanation, I don't know. You said it's been a few years, the battery's dead, shouldn't be doing that. Was it one last sort of just charge from it? I don't know. That's creepy, though. That's creepy. I don't have an explanation for it off the top of my head, but that's definitely creepy for sure. Ethan Self follows up with another $4.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, another experience is my father and my friends have seen a tall shadow man with a top hat outside twice at my old house years apart. Very eerie. Ooh, that is eerie. Maybe it's one of those shadow things. Who knows? Now, the top hat is quite distinct. That leads me to believe that maybe there's a reasonable explanation for it. Maybe not. But I do know that the shadow person that my friend saw at the end of the hall, there was no sort of humanoid shape to it. It was just kind of like a black something, you know, and which is just so fascinating and so interesting. But that's really cool. Guitarist Dog 87 says, in the home I grew up in during the 90s, I saw a woman walk through my hallway at night. I could see through her like a chandelier, but also like white like a silhouette. Now, Guitarist Dog, that's really cool. Were you asleep? Were you half asleep? Was it late at night? How clear was this? How old were you? All those things can play a factor as well, right? Are you sure it wasn't somebody in your house? Did you ever find out who it might have been? Really cool. And the reason why I ask how old were you is not because to dismiss actually, because, oh, you were only like 7 years old. No, it's actually because I actually do believe, and again, like I've said many times, having a belief in something is not evidence of something's existence. But I do believe that kids, young kids especially, are very prone to certain experiences, seeing certain things. I'll never forget, I'll tell you this story, and this is interesting. So my sister was, this is probably about 20 years ago. My sister was living with a friend of hers at the time, and her friend had her husband's daughter over, I think. So like her granddaughter, or her daughter, and her daughter has a daughter. Her daughter's name was okay, let me simplify this. My sister was living with her friend, and her friend's granddaughter was over. There we go. Okay, let's simplify that. God, Dave. And her granddaughter's name was Chantel. And very recently, I believe, her uncle, Chantel's uncle, had passed away. And they were over, and Chantel was playing upstairs or something. I'm paraphrasing this. If my sister were here, she'd probably be able to kind of flesh it out a bit more. But she was playing upstairs, and she comes downstairs into the room where all the adults are, right? And she's got a sucker. She's got a lollipop. And her mother is looking at her, not my sister's friend, but the child's mother, my sister's friend's daughter, is looking at her going, Chantel, where did you get that? Where the hell did you get that? Right? And very casually, now Chantel, I think, was maybe like 7 or 8, something like that. Chantel very casually says, Uncle E gave it to me. Now, Uncle E was her uncle. I forget the name, Evan, maybe perhaps, Edward, I'm not sure. But Uncle E gave it to me. And she says it like, duh, like just so matter of fact. And everybody in the room just kind of stopped and was like, where did you get it? Uncle E gave it to me. Chantel, what do you mean Uncle E gave it to you? And she said, Uncle E said, do you want the purple one, the green one, or the yellow one? And I said the purple one. And so I took the purple one and he vanished. And now I wasn't there, but my sister said, what really got people was the use of the word vanished. It's like, what? It was just such a word that this child would not think to use. And it's like, well, and the mother said, I know there are no lollipops up there. I know I don't have any lollipops in the house. I know my husband has, I don't know where she got this. And to say something like, and she got so frustrated, like, oh, guys, you know, he said, you want the green one, and then he vanished. That was so weird, so weird. So the reason why I ask is because, look, it's entirely possible that you did see that. If you, I do believe that young kids can see certain things and certain things that maybe the average person, adult can't for whatever reason. Is it because they're not too far from that world, having been born not too long ago? And the older you get and the further away you get from that world, you kind of lose that ability. I'm not really sure, but fascinating though, isn't it? Fascinating. Very interesting indeed. Very interesting indeed. Let me see here. Oliver Mercer sends in 10 pounds. Thanks, Oliver. Says, I had a dream of my late Nan recently, yet I saw two of her side by side. It was like she was choosing her direction now, almost. I've had so many experiences over the decades, it's beyond fascinating. Well, Oliver, maybe you're quite in tune with this kind of stuff. You never know. You might be in tune. You might be in tune. Really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Oliver. I appreciate it. And thank you for the super chat as well. Finn Thomas says, my dad told me a story when he was riding his bike at night with some friends and saw, let me try that again. My dad told me a story that when he was riding his bike at night with some friends, he saw a shadow standing in front of him. He went straight through the figure and his friends witnessed it. Really cool. That's fascinating. Fascinating. Maybe that was a shadow person. Right? And again, we like to always go, oh, it's a demon, it's a ghost, but maybe not. Maybe it's just like us with the ant, right? Now, is it a human in another, like, is it like the species of a human in a 4-dimensional space? I don't know. Or is it an entire species altogether? Maybe it is. I have no idea. But that's really cool. That's really, really cool. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, if you haven't heard of Sam and Colby, I have. Oh yeah, I talked about them the other day. Chester, I watched one of their videos about going to an abandoned house. I was scared because there were voices. They didn't know where they came from. Yeah. Oh no, that can be pretty creepy. That can be pretty creepy. I mean, Chester, have you watched episode 242 of McRae Live? Did you hear the EVP, Chester? I think you might want to check it out. Just saying. Mikey Films. Hey, Mikey, great to see you here. Says, I remember when I was 7 years old, seeing an elderly lady in a mirror my mom owned. I described her to my mother, and it turned out that I described her great aunt who I'd never met. Wow. Isn't that interesting? And again, when you were 7 years old, right? I believe that. I really do believe that there is something to this. I really, really do. I mean, even my cat, even Veda, I mean, she'll freak out from time to time and walk around and there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying, but every now and then she'll freak out and she'll be freaked out for like a day or two. And I'm trying to figure out what is freaking her out. I don't have any other pets and I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's Bruce. No, I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening. Davey Deathray. Hey, Davey Deathray, what's going on? Says, hey, everyone, how are the Sunday scaries treating us all tonight? We're having fun. I did a show earlier this afternoon, and there was a big, massive technical thing, and it frustrated me, and I thought, fuck it, I'm jumping on here again. This is like my second live stream in like 3 hours, but I hate when that happens and people can't watch the show. It feels messy, and then I have to delete it, and I thought, no, I'm going to jump on. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it out of the way because I won't be able to do a stream tomorrow because I'm in the studio all day tomorrow doing more episodes of Lana Longbeard, so I got to do that, and so I'm not sure when my next show will be, so that's why I'm doing it right now. Excuse me. Okay, I've got all the super chats, right? Just want to make sure. Again, I appreciate the super chats very much. Thank you. What do we got? We got IDT Kennels. IDT Kennels says, my husband's sister, and I were a train museum. We're on a train museum? Oh, I see. Okay, I think I know what you're saying. On the tour where we're about to enter a live stock car, they both entered, but I was physically pushed back by something and a coldness came over me. Fascinating, IDT. Fascinating. So you actually physically felt something pushing. Now, are you sure you didn't just lose your balance? Are you sure that maybe when you tried to step up or something, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to think of logical explanations. That's really cool though. Fascinating. Did you do any research on the museum or on the cars at all or anything? Did you ask? I don't know. That's really eerie. That's creepy for sure. Creepy for sure. See, everybody's got something. Everybody's got something. JBeach12078 says, I'm glad it happened. I was able to make tonight's stream. Well, there you go. There you go, right? There you have it. Treyas says, I saw a shadow figure standing in the bathroom doorway. I was leaving the kitchen in the old house I used to live. I looked over towards the bathroom because I got a feeling like I was being watched. Wow, there was a black shadow figure that looks somewhat human shape, about 6 feet tall. Now, Treyas, how old were you? Was this recent? That's really interesting because that is what my friend saw at the end of the, I mean, again, kind of this kind of thing. There's something to it. I do believe there's something to it. I really do. I'm not a big believer. Well, I'm just going to say I'm highly skeptical of, demons and things like that because thanks to Hollywood and and the sensationalism of it all. But I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded to be proven that demons are real for sure. But I definitely, based on my experience, like I've been saying for these last 3 shows, that there's something going on. 100%. There's something going on beyond this reality. Now, I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something going on. I don't know if we as humans have the capabilities to ever figure it out. I'm not really sure. And if our 3-dimensional world is hindering us with that, it also could be protecting us as well. But if the only way to, if it is an interdimensional thing, even where our consciousness goes or where our soul goes, right? I mean, that's again, if you're a spiritual person or a religious person, you likely call it the soul. But what you're really referring to is the psyche, consciousness, awareness itself. Wherever that goes, I don't know. Maybe it goes to another dimension in a higher plane, right? But it's a different, you know what I mean? And maybe that is what happens, fascinating. Ethan Self sends in another $9.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, Dave, since the house where you captured the EVP burnt down, do you think that those beings, for lack of a better words, would still be on the property where the house once was? That's a great question. So I've been many times back since the house burnt. Now, I haven't been back to the house because the house is no longer there. The last time I was on the property was 2000. There's really no reason to go back. Now, there is a structure still back there. There is a shed that is still standing that's back there. There is an old abandoned 1970s car that's back there, but that's not supernatural. That's just, there used to be a bunch of mechanics who used to live in the house years ago. They used to work on cars. It's just overgrown with lots of weeds and it would be, I can tell you, in 2012, it was like trenching through the Amazon. I kid you not. And there's ticks out there as well, because I came home with a bunch of ticks. And then just when you think you got rid of them, you find a tick on you like 5 days later. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? Not exactly fun. Now, it wasn't like that when we were going out there, of course, because but now that the shrubbery's just so overgrown and everything, it's crazy. However, in 2002, because the house burned to the ground in February of 2002, in 2002, in the summer of 2000, we did go back out there because it was still relatively fresh. I have photos and video and everything of the rubble. And it was still very fresh. And I took my tape recorder out there and everything. And I never heard anything like that again. Not that I recall. Now, again, the Don't EVP is not the only EVP we ever captured out there. I played it for you because it's arguably, anybody who knows anything about this story, it's the most famous one, probably because it's the clearest and the loudest and the most, it shocks you. I mean, there were people in the chat room the other night that were like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, right? And I think it's because the vast majority of EVP, because we're so saturated with it, are ambiguous because of these dumb ghost boxes that are able to pick up radio waves down the street. So you pick up anything and everything, and and it's just, and generally speaking, they're, they don't really sound like anything. Yes, it's a voice, but I can't quite. And then, the ghost hunters will try to phonetically sound it out, and then there'll be words that pop up onto the screen that, project, your idea of what. It's not that clear EVP doesn't happen where you can close your eyes. You don't need, subtitles to pop up onto the screen. You don't need somebody to, you know what I mean? It's very, that does happen. But it's rare in my experience in seeing and hearing EVPs. And, there was lots to go on there, but anyways, I digress. But I never picked up anything like that again. I don't recall, and we had probably about 2 or 3 audio cassette tapes full. So probably about 3 or 4 hours of stuff that, was interesting stuff. And there might've been a few little things on there, but nothing of prominence, right? Like maybe you heard like a, it's like, oh, what's that? And it kind of sounds like, oh, that might be something. Oh, I think that might, and maybe there's a high probability that it is something, but it's so inconclusive that you just can't, you know what I mean? When the house was standing and we were in the house, there's a lot of stuff that we picked up that is very interesting. The Don't is one of the big ones for sure, but there's other interesting big shit too. So I would say, now, does that mean that whatever was there is gone? Maybe. I do remember one of the last things I said morning, and I turned around just to the rubble and just to the empty space, and I just said, you can go. I said out loud, not one word of a lie. I said, you can go now. You don't have to be here. You can go now. And I said that. Now, depending on what you believe, right? And what your faith is or what your beliefs are and things like that, you might buy into that. Oh yeah, telling them to go really does work, and maybe they left. Maybe. Who knows, right? I don't know. I just did what I thought, what you often see and hear is the right thing to do. And maybe that's why. But, or maybe they're still out there right now. Maybe to them, the house is still standing. I don't know. Who knows? But it is unfortunate it did burn to the ground. But maybe it's a good thing too. Maybe it's a good thing because maybe somebody with more money, would be able to get to it faster, right? In terms of, or more connections, better, maybe somebody who's got $10 million in the bank is like, I'm going to make a movie on this. And then they beat me to it or something, right? Who knows? I have no idea. So in some ways, the house burning to the ground maybe was a bit of a blessing because the story died with it. And now I can, hopefully do something in the future, which is what I want to do. But I'm telling you guys about it because I think it's really cool, and I want you guys to be able to support me when that journey starts. And I don't mean through crowdfunding, because I don't think this is something that can be crowdfunded, in all sincerity. That doesn't necessarily mean that maybe a portion of it isn't crowdfunded, but like I've been saying, this is not a $50,000 film. This is a movie. Again, I don't know how much it would cost because the script isn't even done, but it's a film that I could see being like, $2 to $5 million budget, something like that. Maybe even a bit more, maybe 10 million, who knows? Because there's obviously thunder, lightning, and rain. And anytime you introduce water into a script, oh, there goes your budget goes up. So who knows? I don't really know. But I do know that it is, again, it's something like totally legit, totally pro. This is, all out, right? And so this isn't something that I don't think will be crowdfunded. But I tell you about it so you guys can just support me from the sidelines, and when it eventually does take off, in terms of development and, pre-production and everything, that you guys can be like, yes, and sharing it around and, whatever. I mean, it's exciting. And, the other day when I was talking about it, it got those juices flowing again, and it made me excited to talk about it again and share it. Cause obviously I haven't talked about it much in the last number of years because, I've been focusing on so many things with, the voiceover work and obviously the 2 Billy films and obviously the treatment that Bruce and I wrote as well. We pitched to a studio and that's a project I definitely want to do as well. That might be the next one. I don't know. So, there's lots going on, but talking about it with you guys and sharing that with you is interesting and fun for me. And who knows? It's definitely something I want to do for sure. No doubt about it. Salwayne's Night says, on the night my mom died, I saw her at the very same moment that the phone rang, informing me of her death. Wow. She was standing there looking at me. Then she vanished. I wasn't scared, but I'll never forget. Jesus, what did it look like? Like, what did it that must have been so surreal for you. Do you know what I mean? It must have been so surreal. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Tyler Adams says, I'm just straight up afraid of the dark as a grown man in my own house at night. I hate looking up my stairs into the dark opening of my second floor hallway. Well, there you go. Too many horror movies. That's what that is. No, I understand. When you were a kid, every kid did this. You turn off the lights and then you have to like run to get into bed. I used to do that in my basement. I would watch television in my basement and I would watch like Unsolved Mysteries, which was just ridiculous. Why are you watching it? And I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries in the dark. I don't know why I was torturing myself. I really don't. But when it would be over, I'd turn off the TV and it would be pitch black. And in the distance, I'd see the stairs with the light coming down the stairs from the kitchen. And I would turn off the TV, throw the converter on the couch, run all the way to the stairs, skip one stair or skip a stair, like leap up the stairs and into the kitchen, be like, I don't know why I tortured myself that way, but we all did it. We all did it. Let me see here. Guitarist Dog says, Dave, are you aware of the famous ghost boy photo in the Amityville home? I am. Turns out it was most likely a crew member of Ed and Lorraine Warren's ghost hunting team. Yeah, I did hear about that, and I have seen the photo, and I did hear about that. Hey, listen, even Ed and Lorraine Warren, if you do your research, you know what I mean? We gotta be careful. The Lutzes and the Amityville story, and there's nothing worse than discovering that Santa Claus isn't real. And sometimes that's kind of what happens in these types of situations, right? Is you end up discovering that, Santa Claus really isn't real, and that what ends up happening is I can't remember what it was, but I remember something to do with the Lutzes and something about how there was an admission of something that didn't happen or something. And I remember thinking, it was something like that. I remember reading about this not that long ago, but because generally speaking, what ends up happening is, do I believe that something weird may have happened in the Amityville house? Sure. But the owners, I don't know how many owners the Amityville house has had since the Lutzes, but certainly the current owner has been there for a while, and they've said nothing happens in this house. Nothing. Like, I've been here for years, no spooky stuff, no ghosts, nothing. And it's probably the case. Obviously, the Ronald DeFeo murders didn't help. So there was a bit of lore around it and a bit of mystique around it. And so that can help buy into it too, right? So it can be a bit tricky, you know? And there's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with watching movies that go to the extreme with the sensationalism, the paranormal space. But I kind of feel like I have to take it in small quantities, like the ghost hunting shows. You know, like I watched a few episodes of Sam and Colby, and I like them. I do. I'll be honest. I like those guys. I like them. Like, I like their demeanor, their persona, they're charismatic. They seem like good guys. And they will try to debunk certain things and do certain stuff. But at the end of the day, their show is about entertainment. And, you know, as somebody who ghost hunted, even though we didn't call it that back then, you know, who has experienced this kind of stuff, most of the time it's very underwhelming. I mean, if you've ever actually been ghost hunting, you know, it's like making a movie. It's not all that exciting, right? It can be exciting, but you know, coming to the set of It's Me, Billy, or any other film, I mean, depending on who you are, it's not all that exciting, right? I mean, you know, you can take an hour to set up something to shoot for 30 seconds, and then that's it. And now, okay, that's moving on. Now you got to take it. Making movies is not the, you know, the glitz and glam it's made out to be. And ghost hunting, if you will, is very similar. And so that is why these ghost hunting shows are so extreme and are so, you know, ADD with their cuts and production value and whoa, and sound design. Dude, the flashlight turned on. Dude, I tell you right now, it's incredible. You know, you hear that. They have to do that, you know, because it adds tension and suspense and, you know, all that stuff. And it's really not like that in reality, but it sells, and it certainly sells to their fan base. And I'm not saying that everything they experience is bogus. I'm just saying that the things they do experience, the show hams up to the extreme to make it out to be far more, special than what it probably actually is. And that's because they need to do that. I mean, every episode's got to have something, right? And so, but yeah, it's a fascinating space, and it's really interesting to think back to where I was nearly 25 years ago, before social media and before these ghost hunting shows. And, you know, there was, like, as I've said, there was no YouTube, no social media, no Twitter, no Instagram, no Facebook, Snap. There was nothing. And so it's really interesting to see something that we college kids were doing because it really was serious. And again, not that it's not that Sam and Colby aren't into that kind of stuff, but I find it really fascinating to see something that was so just, I don't know what the right word is. To see something that was nothing, you know, in terms of popularity, or what we were doing. Like, we didn't call ourselves ghost hunters. We didn't say, come on, we're ghost hunting tomorrow. We didn't say that. We didn't know what the hell we were. We were just going over to the house all the time. And it's crazy to look now to see what we were doing is a multi-million-dollar business with all these, you know, people and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, it's really interesting. And I mean that it's really fascinating, but definitely over dramatized for sure. For sure, no doubt about it. Okay, I'll go a few more minutes here, and then I gotta skedaddle. I got all the super chats. I'm pretty sure I did. So let me see here. I want to get somebody I haven't gotten before, or at least not too often. Treya says, my mom also has a great story that involves me. She said that one night she had put me to sleep and went to watch a movie. During a commercial, she went to check on me, and at a couple of months old, I was lying on the floor. Wow. So I somehow got from my crib to the floor before I could do it myself. That's interesting. Wow. That's definitely creepy. That's definitely creepy. Wow. Did your mom put a little baby monitor or security camera into the room after that? I would have done that for sure. Just for safety, so I could make sure that you were not, falling out and hurting yourself. Evil Monsterism says, once I was fishing at night with a friend on a pier on Lake Huron. We saw a line of non-moving dull red lights far out in the lake. It skipped. Hang on a sec here. Where'd it go? There it is. We tried to get it on video, but our phones wouldn't pick it up. Yeah, that's the thing, right? With phones and all that kind of stuff. It's especially at night and it can be very tricky to capture footage. Where Nomad has gone before sends in a member chat. Thank you, Nomad. Says, I do believe kids are open. When I was young, I think I could see auras. I'd ask about the glow around someone. My dad would say there is no glow. Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Fascinating stuff indeed. Really, really interesting. Big Papa Musk says, I'll never forget a dream I had when I was about 6 or 7. Jason was chasing me for a bit and caught up to me, stabbed me in the dream, and I woke up with cramps on the side. He stabbed me in the dream. Fascinating. Ooh, it's kind of like a Nightmare on Elm Street there. A little bit of Elm Street there. That's pretty interesting. Interesting indeed. Aaron Click says, I want to believe in something after life, but I'm unsure, and that's okay. Absolutely, that's okay. 100%. 100%. Because, like, again, right? I mean, take the don't EVP, right? The don't EVP. Again, that's real. It's real. I can't prove it to you, right? You have no evidence. You could sit there and go, no, that's just Dave. It's not me. It's not me. It's 100% real. But even I don't go as far as to say that it's the voice of a dead person, because I don't know. This world is crazy. And if we really do want to start talking about, different dimensions and different universes and I mean, who knows what it is, right? And like the analogy with the ant, right? The ant living in the two-dimensional world, I step over it and cast a shadow over it. That ant has no idea where that shadow is coming from. None. The ant has no idea where it's coming from, right? And then I step out of the sunlight and I'm gone and the shadow's gone and the ant's like, what the hell? But I'm real and I'm alive and I'm not a ghost. I just live in a three-dimensional world and I'm able to penetrate and affect the ant's two-dimensional world without the ant even knowing I was there. And maybe that's what's happening here. Maybe it is, right? So ghosts and the voices of dead people, maybe, maybe it's all connected in some way. Like maybe there's, it's all, when we die and consciousness and four-dimensional spaces and different universes, interdimensional, like maybe it's all connected in a lot of ways. And like I said, I don't know if we will ever know the answer, but what we deem as supernatural and paranormal right now could very well be natural. Could very well be natural. We just haven't discovered it yet because we can't, because we're limited in our abilities. And, but the fourth dimension could be very real and just as real as our dimension right now with this microphone and bottle of water and me talking to you guys, and just as real. But we can't access it because we are incapable of it. And so it feels supernatural to us when in reality, it's just very natural. Like the shadow over the ant would feel very supernatural to that ant. There's nothing supernatural about it. There's nothing supernatural about that shadow that ant is seeing, right? There isn't. But it would feel that way to the ant, right? I mean, if the ant could, actually think of these things. The ant's not actually thinking that, but if the ant could think and speak like a human and speak English, yeah, the ant, there's no doubt. Dude, it was fucking crazy. Oh, dude, you're lying. There's no such thing. And it's like, no, it's real. But really, it is just the universe. It's just, I don't know, man. It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff. I think I mentioned this the other day on the show, but like I said, I mean, I don't know what the don't voice is, but I do know that it wasn't any of us and there was nobody else there. So where did it come from? Who was it and where did it come from? Who was it and where did it come from? Well, I don't know who it was. It sounds female to me. Where did it come from? I don't know. Obviously, a different dimension or space in time. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Is it a ghost, like a traditional ghost? It's the voice of a dead person? Maybe. But see, the crazy thing is, and here's what's crazy too, right? Okay. Humor me on this, guys. I fucking find this stuff so fascinating. So, like I was saying, right? The question is, was it aware of us, right? So take the ant analogy again, right? I know. You're sick of the ant analogy. Humor me. So you take the ant analogy again, right? As I was saying, I can intentionally affect the space of the ant. I can intentionally do that because I see the ant on the ground. I see him, bathing in the sunlight, and I'm going to step in front of the sun and cast a big shadow over the ant because I see the ant there. I am aware the ant is there. I am another species living in a different dimensional space than the ant. Okay. Now, of course, you could say, well, the ant can move in a three-dimensional space. Well, of course it can because it can climb up things, right? It can move within a three-dimensional space. I just mean the ant itself. If the ant is on the ground, in that moment, it's in a two-dimensional space. It can't look up, right? It has to move itself to like climb up something, and now it's going up, right? Now it's, you know what I mean? But I can see the ant there. Okay. So then it becomes a situation where whatever that voice was, were they aware of us there? Were they aware of us there? And that don't was like me telling the ant not to move off the cliff or something. I don't know. Like it's weird, isn't it? Don't, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Hoping that we could hear. I don't know. Because it does sound like it's answering my question. I mean, the timing is impeccable. It's eerie. It's so phenomenal. It's eerie. And I know I'm a bit biased. I know I am a bit biased. I am biased because it's I get it. But out of all the EVP I've heard, and I've heard a lot, and I've heard some really good ones, there's a number of factors why I think this is one of the best. It's incredible. Was whatever that voice was and wherever it came from, was it aware we were there? Oh, that's so wild. It's so wild. It's awesome. It's so awesome. George Stegall sends in a very generous super chat of $20. Thank you, George. It says, "Hi, Dave. My dad passed away when I was 12. My condolences. My mom and I came home a few days later, and we both heard church music out in the yard after getting out of our vehicle. We lived in the country with no neighbors. Thanks." Interesting. Church music. So you mean like bells, like church bells and things like that? That is peculiar. Was it a song or the type of music that your dad was, that he really liked or that he was really into or something like that? That's pretty cool. Hey, Nightly Gymo, what's going on? New Nightmare sends in $9.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, "Hey, Dave, haven't seen the other show, but I was wondering if you've heard of John Wolfe. He did a really great YouTube video dissecting Sam and Colby's Conjuring House visit. Hope all is well." Maybe I have John Wolfe. I might have. I don't know. I did watch, I did go down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I did watch a number of things. And yeah, I like Sam and Colby. Like I said, I do. But, and I think they're good guys. And I think, out of all the paranormal shows, I think they're one of the better ones to watch. But they're still in the business of entertainment, and they're still in the business of entertaining, and they still have to have drama and things happen, so you will watch. Like I can tell you right now, if I like made a YouTube show on the Port Robinson Road experience, it would probably be one of the most boring shows of all time to a lot of people who are used to those kinds of shows. But to me, I find it really fascinating, like watching real-time, real shit, conversations, discussions, things that are going on. Like, I'm not bored by that stuff, but, you know, you wouldn't find us going, I mean, we might get excited about something that we see, or wait, shh, quiet. Oh, hang on. You know, sure, of course. But there was never like a, wow, oh my God, holy shit, oh my God, my flashlight just went out. Ah! Nothing like that. Although our flashlights did go out and our camera batteries did die. That did happen. Oliver Mercer sends in 10 pounds. Thank you, Oliver. And says, by the 3 full body apparitions that I have seen at the ages of 7, 26, and 36, they have all shown themselves to look pixelated and see-through grainy. They were of my grandpa, granddad, and my dad. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Oliver, because yeah, that is something that is interesting. Yeah, like what does it look like? How do we perceive it? How do we see it? You know, what's going on, right? And if it is coming from a different dimensional space, then yeah, like, I mean, it's a very sort of, it's creepy. It's definitely creepy. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Treya says, it was one of the best EVPs I have ever heard. Very clearly said, don't. Thank you. Thanks, Treya. Yeah, no, it's wild. It's wild. I mean, imagine, you know, thinking back to, and it's hard because it's been so long ago now, but to January of 2001, it was a very different world. You know, like I said the other day on the show, it was a very, very different world. Again, this is like, you know, what? 10 months or 8 months before 9/11. I mean, it was a very different world then. And I remember sitting in that Tim Hortons, and as soon as I heard that, I was like, I looked at, you know, my friend, and we're like, what the? Because again, we didn't hear that when we were there, like how EVP usually is. It's wild. And even now when I hear it, like when I heard it for the first time in many years the other day, it still gets me. It still gets me. It still makes me go, holy shit. Like it's so clear. It's so clear. Folks, again, I implore you, please, if you are really into this subject matter, watch episode 242 of McRae Live. Just remember that what you hear is real and it's totally legit. And again, that's not me saying that it's definitely a ghost. It's just me saying that it's not fake. There's no trickery. It's not bullshit. It's legit. It's real. And I don't want to go out and say it's the clearest EVP I've ever heard, because I have heard some pretty clear EVPs. But maybe but I know and this wasn't, and this is the thing too, right? Is that nowadays, because of the saturation of ghost hunting, there's gadgets and gadgets now, right? I mean, there's Ghostbusters now. You got you got your EFM meter, you got your this meter and your ghost box, and I got this ghost box here. Let me turn it on, and it's cycling through white noise, and then you hear like, I think I heard death, and it's like, this is not how that is not how we captured our EVP. Do I still have it? Here it is. Now, it wasn't this tape recorder, like I said, it wasn't this tape recorder, but it was a tape recorder like this, right? It was an analog cassette, an old analog cassette tape recorder. You can't get shit like this now unless you get it off eBay. It was like this, an old analog cassette tape recorder, a tape like this, you put it in there. This isn't designed to pick up radio waves and cycle through white noise. This is just an analog cassette tape recorder that I had out there at the house. Right? You know what I mean? There were no smartphones. It's a very different world then. And it wasn't all that long ago. I mean, 25 years ago is not that long ago, or 24 years ago, but still a long time ago. And so, you know, when I see these ghost boxes and, you know, all this stuff, I just kind of roll my eyes and I think, yeah, but these ghost boxes are designed to pick up like waves and frequencies and white noise, and they're, you know, and the fucking truck driver driving down the street on his CB. I mean, that's not how you do it. You know, like you gotta eliminate all that shit and really kind of just, you know, I don't know, maybe go old school. I don't know. But that is how we captured that. That's how we captured that. So this is not the local DJ down the street. This is not, you know, a 7-Eleven commercial popping over the radio. This is not this is not anything like that. This isn't cycling through white noise in the area going, death. Oh, I think I heard death. Not understanding that it was probably, you know, a commercial or something. And I'm not saying that there isn't validity to those things. I'm just saying that a lot of these ghost hunting tools are very gimmicky. You know, like for example, like a lot of these boxes that will pick up lights and, you know, things like that are designed to pick up certain frequencies and waves. And these ghost hunters have their cell phones on them and they have walkie-talkies on them, you know, and they're freaking out when a light pops on. And it's like, well, yeah, but you got your fucking walkie-talkie on and you also got your cell phone on. And like, I mean, come on, guys. I mean, you know, of course it's going crazy. Look, it gets really crazy when I get closer to it. You've got your walkie-talkie on. Oh. You know, and so there's a lot of that goes on in the ghost hunting world because of these gadgets now and these ghost hunting tools and stuff. We didn't have any ghost hunting tools. We didn't have any ghost boxes or anything. We were out there with a fucking analog cassette tape recorder and a fucking flashlight from, I don't know, fucking Home Depot. I mean, that's all we had. That's all we had. You know, and so, yeah, like it was old school. You know, very old school, but when you hear that don't, you know, it's like, wow. Like it's like fucking, it's impressive if I do say so. And I don't mean it's like I didn't do anything. I was just standing there holding it. I just mean that it's impressive how prominent and clear it is. And like I said, it's got a certain sound to it. There's a certain kind of like, it's brighter than we are. It's got like a tinny kind of, like it's a different frequency. Like almost like in today's digital world, how you would like EQ something a bit differently. It kind of sounds like that. And I've noticed that from the get-go, right from when I heard it in January of 2001. It always sounded like it was, I don't know how else to describe it, but like it's coming from a different place. It's always sounded that way to me. And it's always sounded female to me, even though there were some people in the chat room that heard it that agreed with me and some people that said, not really sure. It kind of sounds a bit ambiguous. That's totally fair. Like, obviously I don't know the gender. I have no idea. But it's always spoken to me as female. Whenever I hear it, I go, this sounds female to me. It feels female. But yeah, like those shows, I mean, there's a place for them, but like, I often, you know what, I wonder if I have to reach out to some of my old college friends that I don't know how many would come on this show. I don't know if any would come on this show. I don't know. So I don't want to make any promises, but I often wonder what they would think about, you know, kind of how overly sensational it's all become now. Even, you know, if they're even into that, I have no idea. But I, you know what, leave it with me, and I will, because I still follow them. I mean, there's still some people. There's lots of people I'm not in touch with anymore. But there's probably about 4 or 5 I can think of off the top of my head that I could probably reach out to and inquire. How much they remember, I don't know. I mean, let's not forget, right? People grow up, they get married, they have kids, they have jobs, they have vacations, they go on with their lives, and they never, do you know what I mean? So how much they would remember today, I don't know. Or I might be surprised. You never know. Ethan Self sends in $4.99. Thank you, Ethan. Says, Dave, did your parents have similar viewpoints about the paranormal? Yeah, I would say so. I think both my parents, more so my mom, but I would say that my dad, because I talked about it more with my mom, but I would definitely say that yes, both my parents were very open. My dad was very open-minded. My mom certainly so. I took my mom out to the house when she came to visit me in college. I took her out there, not at night. I didn't take her out there at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something. But I took her out there during the day. It was like during the, I don't know, maybe it was like late afternoon. And I took her out there and she fell in love with it. She loved the house. She thought it was beautiful. She didn't get any bad feelings by it. She just thought it was kind of sad, you know, because it's abandoned, it's run down. And that's very much like my mom. You know, my mom, you know, was very much a feeler, you know, and she was like, oh, it's so sad. And it is, like, from a certain point of view, it is sad, you know, but we didn't like pick up any ghosts or anything like that. And I don't think I brought my tape recorder that day. I took my sister out there with her friend. I did bring my tape recorder that day because I recently found it and heard a bit of it, or listened to a bit of it. I remember taking my friend Brian out there at nighttime. He's Catholic, and he walked away pretty convinced. But he's also Catholic. But although I will say he's not very religious. He comes from a Catholic family, but he's not overly religious, I'll say. He's a great guy. I love Brian. But I remember taking him out there, and that was at night, and I did tape record that. Again, it was more audio. There was some video that was recorded, but it was more audio because we were in college. We didn't have a video camera. Video cameras back then were really expensive, guys. Like, I mean, you could spend like $700 or $800 on a video camera, right? Now you can shoot on your phone, right? Not a big deal. But back then you actually, like, you couldn't shoot on your phone. You know, it was still the flip phones or not even the flip phones, just the old Nokia phones, you know, the little brick phones. I mean, you know, there was no recording that way. And then we did have to, like, we did shoot some video, like I said, on a high 8 camcorder. And I think it was my friend's cousin's camcorder or something like that or whatever. We had to borrow it. So we did use that a couple of times. And when you're out, it's so dark out there. It's so dark out there that you have to turn, like, thankfully this camera had like a couple of modes, and when you're out there at night, you have to turn night vision on. You can't not. It's just so dark. It's so dark, like you only see where your flashlight is pointed. If you turn your flashlight off, you literally can't see the hand in front of your, like, you know, your hand in front of your face, because you're a football field away from the road. And it's it's a country road. It's not like a neighborhood or something like that. And now during the winter time, it was a bit brighter because of the snow. So the snow would obviously cast some light. But if you were out there like in the spring or in the fall, which we were, it's I mean, you know, like on a clear sky, if the moon's shining, it might be a little brighter, but it's pitch black out there. And so we had to have the night vision on. So we do have there is a video that we did record at night in the winter. It was freezing, but it's all green because of night vision, right? So, and you had to do that. So really, like the best thing for us at that time, you know, because the decade had just changed over from 1999 to 2000. Camcorders are really expensive. Kids generally didn't have them. They were like your mom or dad. And so we had to just roll with what we had, which was a tape recorder, you know, and it was great. Like I said, I have like, I don't think I can, well, yeah, they're all down there, but there's like 22 tapes, including the 4 that I showed you earlier. So there's a lot to sift through. But yeah, no, they were very open to it. And my mom was a very spiritual person. Well, I told that story about how when my mom was dying, I asked her to come to me and let me know if it was real. And she was basically unconscious at this point. Like, she wasn't really conscious. She was still alive, but she wasn't really conscious. And I said that to her. And then I don't know how long later, but I had a very profound dream of speaking to my mother on the telephone. It was one of those dreams where you really feel like you were visited. You know, there's just it's indescribable. If you've had a dream like that where you wake up and you really feel like you've been visited, like, you know what I mean? If you've had a dream like that, you know what I'm talking about. It's a very weird, powerful feeling, and very strange. good, but very overwhelmingly, it's a very weird feeling. You wake up and you really feel it, and you go to the bathroom and you're peeing in the toilet, but you can still feel it. You know what I mean? Like it's weird. It's almost like you were been shocked with like adrenaline or something. It's a very, very strange feeling. And I remember in the dream, I was saying to my mom, I'm on the phone with her, and for whatever reason, I was in my dad and stepmom's bedroom in Ottawa, where I lived, in the house that I grew up as a teenager. I don't know why I was in that bedroom. Don't know why. I mean, it was, my mom never lived there. It wasn't my mom's house. It was my dad and my stepmom. So I don't know. But anyway, that's where I was. And I remember my mom was on the phone, and I remember saying to my mom, I'm paraphrasing this, but it was something like, where are you? And she says, I'm back. I'm back. It's just saying it like that, like just sounded very happy. I'm back. And then I said, I think on the phone, I was like, is it real? Is it real? And she said, yes, yes. Just like that, yes. And then there was this very strange, sort of, I don't know how to describe it. Okay. I really don't. So bear with me. It was like I heard and felt like a drop in pressure or frequency that was like do you know, the only way I can describe it, when like I don't know, like it sounded like a, like but I could feel, like you could feel the rumble, like when you stand, like you're at a school dance or something, or you're at a club and you just feel the bass in you, you know what I mean, or whatever, just like, whoa, and you just feel that in you, and your whole innards are shaking. That's what it was kind of like, but it was like a drop in frequency, and it was strange. It was but it wasn't like the speaker thing. I'm just saying that's the best way I can describe it. And then I woke up. And really, now, is there any way to prove that was my mother? No, there's no way to prove it, of course. I did ask my mom to let me know if it was real, and she came through and said, yes, but that's also in my subconscious. That's also what I want. My mother had just passed away. It's very emotional, right? We can't, I know it takes the fun out of it. I know it does. But we do have to think about those things. If we're serious about knowing the truth and not just living in a world of, feeling nice, if we really do want to know the truth, we do have to remember that those things can happen. There are certain emotional triggers and factors in our subconscious and the psychology and those things can happen. It is possible that it wasn't what it seemed, and it was myself manifesting it, right? It is possible. That's all I'm saying. But there's no way to prove that either, right? But we do have to make sure that we remember that. But man, it felt real. It felt real. It felt wow. It was powerful. When I woke up, for like the rest of, or at least for like half the day, I could feel this feeling. Like I could feel it. I could feel it within me. I could feel it. And then eventually, as the day goes on and you hit late afternoon, supper time, things like that, obviously it begins to dissipate and it's gone. But whatever that is, whatever it was, it injected me. And I did ask her to let me know, and she did. Now, some people have asked, what do you think she meant by I'm back. I'm back. Some people said, do you think she meant that like she was reincarnated and she's back on Earth? And I said, well, I guess that's possible if you believe in that kind of thing, but that's not the feeling I got from it. My first instinct, and you should always trust your first instinct, especially in that kind of a situation with a dream. My first instinct was that she was telling me that she was back. Like she was back in wherever she was, wherever her conscious, her consciousness, her psyche, her awareness, because obviously her body's not there, right? Her body was cremated. But wherever her soul, as it is often referred to in religious, text and things like that, but, the psyche, the soul, whatever it is, wherever that is, that's what she meant. Right? So, some people could say if you're religious, it's heaven, or if you didn't like your mother, it's hell, whatever the case is, right? But whatever that is, the fourth dimension, a parallel universe, a different plane of existence, whatever that is, that's what I felt in the dream in the moment she was talking about. She was not saying that I'm back on Earth. Oh, by the way, Dave, I'm back. I'm the baby that was just born down the street. That's not what I got. I got that she's back to wherever, I don't know, wherever we come from, maybe. I have no idea. But it was a very powerful dream, And I've dreamt of my mom since, but not really. And it's funny, I don't really dream of my mom and dad. I don't. And my dad, I've never really dreamt of. But that was a very powerful dream, for sure. Michael Dammit says, has your mom ever heard the recording? Absolutely, yes. Oh, yeah. She's heard for sure. My mom has, my dad has, my sister, my brothers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all very like, whoa, that's wild. All the good names are taken podcast. Ronnie and Blake, ladies and gentlemen, say, I'm watching this on my patio while cooking. Hurried my ass inside after hearing shadow people in the woods. Oh, you better get in there. Or maybe feed them some burgers and chicken wings, whatever. Just throw them at them. Get out of here, you son of a bitch. Your wife would be like, what the hell are you doing? There's shadow people out there, honey. I think Ronnie's lost it again. Tyler Adams says 2000 or early 2001, my grandpa matched my savings to help me buy a Sony Handycam. Best gift of my life. Amazing. Well, you know what I'm talking about, right? They were expensive. Now we have cameras on our phones that shoot 4K and that shoot really great in low light. Yeah, it wasn't like that back then. It was so it was very different. Those cameras were expensive. You'd pay at least $500, $600, $700 for something like that. At least. Maybe if you get like a bargain, it's after Christmas or something or whatever. Sure. You can get them a bit cheaper, sure. But generally speaking, those things were very expensive. I actually still have mine not the one we took to the house, obviously, because that wasn't mine, but I still have my old high 8 camcorder that I bought in the early 2000s. I still have it. I wonder if it works. I should charge it up and see if it works. That thing would be fun. Thunderwolf 4 says, in high school, I saw a dress-like figure floating by a tree in the park in the park by my school. No, let me try that again. A tree in the park, my school bus passed by. Gotcha. It was raining at the time, but could see it clear as day. Well, I don't know. That's creepy. Maybe are you sure it wasn't a balloon, or maybe it was somebody's clothing stuck in the tree blowing in the wind? You said it was raining at the time. I don't know. Or maybe it was somebody floating. Who knows? You never know, folks. You never know. All right, folks. Well, listen, that's going to do it for this episode of McRae Live, episode 243B. 243B. If you don't know what that means, it's because I actually did a show this afternoon that screwed up. There was a massive technical glitch, not during the stream, but after the fact, during the processing of it. And so I don't know when I'm going to be able to jump on next, because I'm busy tomorrow with some voiceover work, doing some more episodes for Lana Longbeard. Very excited about that. And so I'm not sure when I'll be able to jump on. I had some time this evening, so that's why I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to redo the show. But you know what? I think this was a better show than the one I did this afternoon. So, hey, you know what? There's always a chance to kind of, make it even better. So instead of calling it 244, which really that is kind of what it is, it's episode 243B. That's what it is. Folks, you are amazing. I didn't miss any super chats, did I? Let me just double check here. I don't believe I missed any super chats. I just want to make sure. but I don't believe I did. No, I have not. Okay, great. Thank you to my wonderful moderators as usual, of course. Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens. Thank you to the super chats that came in, and thank you for everybody that I was able to get to anyway. I know there's a lot of people in there, but thank you to those who shared your stories. But don't worry, the chat room is in playback, so your story will appear when you watch the show back as well. And if you're watching after the fact, jump it in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on my idea about shadow people in the fourth dimension, and let me know what you think, or tell some of your stories into the comment section below. I'd really like to know some of your stories and, what you think of the paranormal and what's going on. And don't forget to check out episode 242 of McRae Live. It's the show right before this one, so you can hear Don't. I'm telling you, man, but watch the whole thing. Watch, or at least watch, as I said, about 45 minutes of it, because it's important that you watch me set you up. If you don't know anything about my story and all that kind of stuff, it's important you have context so you can really appreciate what you're listening to. Check it out. It's there. It's, who knows, folks? Could be world exclusive. I don't know. All right. Have a great rest of your Sunday night. You're amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you all soon. All righty. Cheers.